big business for British Columbia, but there is a problem. The number of fish keeps fluctuating wildly. The federal government set up a commission of inquiry 2 years ago, in fact, to look into the decline of sockeye salmon in the Fraser River. Justice Bruce Cohen thought he'd heard all the relevant facts and theories, but he's reopening the inquiry today to get evidence on something called infectious salmon anemia virus. Alexandra Morton believes it's a huge problem. She's a marine biologist, and she actually joins me live from Vancouver. So this virus, and you know the name so much better than I do, what does it do to fish?
It's a type of flu, and so it just forms mucus over their gills, and it destroys their nervous system. It's pretty lethal, and it's creeping around the world wherever salmon farming has appeared. So my Norwegian counterpart said, we expected you guys would get this.
But you know what? The CFIA, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, Alexandra, says they can't confirm the presence of this virus in BC salmon. What do you say to them?
I say we need to really check what they're doing, because I'm taking samples, splitting it between two non-government labs. One is the OIE reference lab, so the World Health Organization for Animals reference lab in PEI. They can find it. The labs in Norway can find it. So we need to know what the government lab is not doing right, because they can't find it.
Are you suggesting they're not being completely truthful, perhaps hiding something?
Well, I do think there's a cover-up going on here. One of the problems is there's one strain of this virus that can't be cultured, and I think that they're using that excuse to say it hasn't been confirmed, but they probably are actually finding the virus. So we're going to find out a lot today, but this has been a very difficult issue. We have some government scientists within DFO that have tracked down the fact that the majority of Fraser sockeye are dying of a virus. As soon as she found that, her funding was cut off. She wasn't allowed to talk to the media. So there's a lot of concern that we're not getting the full story, and that's why myself and a team of volunteers have been out there doing the research ourselves, because salmon disease cannot be a federal secret if we're going to be able to keep these fish alive. I mean, they're feeding the trees that are making the oxygen we breathe. They're a very, very important animal.
So you say you have this evidence. Like, I mean, how proactive have you been in letting the Food Inspection Agency know that this is what you found? I mean, I just want to sort of unravel some of that.
Yeah, for sure. I forward everything straight to them, and I also post it on my blog so that people can look at it and evaluate it themselves. I'm not a virologist, but I am a field biologist, so I am able to take good samples and send them to the labs. They say they're finding infectious salmon anemia. They say they're finding it in a lot of places. There's also reports that DFO did a study back in 2002 and 3 where they found it in 100% of the Fraser sockeye. Those are the fish that the inquiry was looking at. DFO was supposed to submit all information about the health of those fish. So if in fact they co-authored a paper that found this virus 6 years ago, 7 years ago in the sockeye, we need to know why they did not provide this evidence to Justice Cohen before. Eventually, the lab that did the test said, look, this data has to come out, and as I understand it, they're the ones that submitted it to the Cohen inquiry.
Okay, so I'm still trying to understand why it would be in the government's favor to have people like me, and I eat, fish, and I eat salmon from the Fraser. Why wouldn't be a wise thing to let us all know? Do the safe thing, if this exists.
Yes, most of the salmon farm product is being shipped overseas, and right now British Columbia is considered an ISA-free zone. So that releases us from a certain number of trade restrictions. As soon as it's recognized that we have ISA, those trade restrictions will apply to British Columbia. I think that's why. Now, there's been a big problem for DFO. They were given the mandate to promote salmon farming and protect wild salmon. But farm salmon break all the natural laws, and they allow pathogens to become more virulent, to reproduce faster and more frequently. And so there's problems with salmon farms and wild salmon everywhere in the world. The answer is really easy. Just separate the two. Just get the farm fish away from the wild fish. You can't move the wild fish, but you can move the farms. And the Norwegian industry, which is what this is going to have to decide whether they want to stay here at all, if they have to get out of the water.
Alexandra, I thank you for your time, and we'll be watching that Cohen inquiry as it begins again very closely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. That was Alexandra Morton in Vancouver. She is a marine biologist. I want to take you live. Here's a